Now, an addiction seems to be a habit that takes time and resources from doing that which is more in your interest, and defining more in your interest to include the you of the future as well as the present. So, in other words, it's an activity that makes you less happy, less full, less complete, less right than you would otherwise be as regards your well-being and, well, shall I say then, life eternal, heavenly life. Now, I mean, we have a basic notion that the eternal is infinitely large, and the present, well, actually infinitely small. You know, what moment of time is defined as the present? This moment, not the next. Okay? And we may think more generally of a stream of present, a scan, you know, covering, say, today is the present day, or today is the present year that we're in, say, or decade, or century, or millennium, etc. So, whatever the unit, even if it is a century, say, or more, compared to the eternal, it's insignificant, to say the least. It's approaching zero, just as the eternal is approaching infinity in some sense. One can think of it like that. So I might love reading fiction. It's an addiction in that you realize it's taking time from various activities that would greatly enhance my well-being compared to spending the time reading the fiction. Or I might be addicted to something that affects the health of the body. So, for argument's sake, let's not be too extravagant in the example. I'm hooked on some sport, and it not only takes time that could be used for other pursuits that would improve my well-being rather more, but actually puts the body at risk, repetitive stress, say, or twisting the back like it's argued perhaps that golf can do, and not necessarily good for the body. Or it might be cycling to excess or running to excess, splintering the bones in the heel and so on, where you hit the ground if you land on your heel on each step, especially on hard surfaces, well, particularly I suppose on hard surfaces. So you're addicted to, you love this pursuit in that it has a significant amount of time, significant in the sense that it's costing you the opportunity to do other things that are more beneficial for you, defined as you in the present, but especially the future. In fact, we can define your welfare as being specifically the future, because the future is conceivably infinite. The present is very finite indeed, according to the unit defined, second or century or whatever. Now, you might not have included these things I've touched on here as particular addictions, something like, say, doing, Sudoku or the internet. You can start to realize once Facebook, say, or something, might become an addiction for you. More seriously, that really starts to damage your resources and time use, might be gambling, drinking, alcohol and so on, that's going to affect your health, not just your misuse of time. and may damage you socially too, in that you start to get ostracized by people and things, people that would have been more beneficial to you, and membership of such and so on. And there are more serious, well, I don't know, I mean, drink can be extremely serious, wreck your life, can't it? But there are others, and we know them all, don't we? Even something very innocent, say, like, I mean, ostensibly very innocent, like, well, anything you do to excess. I mean, it could be cleaning the house. You know, you do it virtually every day or twice a day, and in no way does it need it, in a sense. But you're driven to do it because you want the place utterly right, and that seems important to you. But it's greatly at the cost of having a more balanced view that recognizes there are other things that are far more important for your well-being, and in particular just not spending so much effort and time on such a practice. So you might be addicted to gardening. Many of the addictions, well, I suppose all, any practice that's really devoted to the transitory, in the sense that it does not contribute in itself to the eternal, is an addiction. Now that's really, that's a sort of surprise definition that occurs to me. I'm not saying it's, workable, practical. Let's consider it. If it doesn't add to the eternal, well, the eternal has, in sum total, tremendous value, unless you have a 100% discount, in some sense, on the eternal. So that in the present you're discounting the future completely. In which case, if the future is of no value to you whatsoever, then you spend the present entirely on whatever gives the present unit of time, be it a second or a century, the most benefit, and there is no benefit from the future considered in the present. Now that is, of course, the epitome of danger, because whatever this present unit is, unless it is infinity, is passing. And having passed, you now have the consequence of whatever the future infinity of time is, and you've not optimized for it. For argument's sake, you drank a poisoned drink now because it tasted nice, and in physical terms, you've now died. End of story. There's no future benefit. You've lost greatly in the self that you would have entered into the future, and you've just finished. Well, we have a notion that you don't just finish, that in some sense you are a being that is outside of time, and therefore what has one done to that being? How does this affect my future? And I'm concerned about that unless I have 100% discount. In other words, I don't value the future now whatsoever. Then I'll just maximize the present unit of value, and wow, I find I've moved on to a new time period after that time unit expires, and I'm not prepared in the good way I could be. So the present is a fantastic opportunity to contribute to the eternal. Some people discount the present greatly. No, the present is an absolute wonderful gift of God. In a sense, it's all we have. And we can invest it into the life eternal that we may well find we come into. The uncertainty about whether the life eternal is there or not. We don't know what the future brings. Can we contribute to its well-being and benefit through time? Is that important to us? And our experience here in this universe of time, space and matter is that it is important to us because the future keeps becoming the present. And we start to realize that some futures are more desirous in the present than others. And so we start to value the future in the present. And the degree to which we value the future in the present determines what we sacrifice or are willing to spend of the now on this future value that we ascribe. So I might be concerned not just to have safety now, but also into the near future. So I avoid going down a certain road because although it's quicker to go that way, I could be risking running into something dangerous which will greatly affect my next few periods of time that I'm considering. If I'm not considering very far into the future, we say we've got quite a high intertemporal discount factor. We're discounting the future such that anything beyond a few days' time really doesn't matter to us, or even a few minutes' time. Some people are very myopic in a sense of being only looking at the present, or in some considerable measure compared to other people. Others, of course, are so concerned with the future that the present is of no value at all. Now that may be self-inconsistent. If the future is of no present at all, and no value at all, then it's not even of value as regards valuing the future. In which case you're not valuing life, future or present at all. You can think of some circumstances of suicide that might be like that, where the mind is so preoccupied with the possible option of living in the present or the future being so bad that it doesn't want either, and hopes, even in the uncertainty, to avoid such bad experience both now and in the future. And so, jumps off the bridge or whatever it is. What's the other extreme is to discount the present greatly in favour of the future, or discount the future greatly in terms of the present. Well, if you discount the future greatly in terms of the present, and you end up doing something very, I think the word is hedonistic, is it, where you are willing to, have wine and song now, and death and annihilation comes to you tomorrow. If you value heavily the future and not the present, then you're so present sacrificing that you're a pretty austere person, constantly building and investing for a future. You're not pursuing pleasure at all in the present, apart from the pleasure of the present stemming from building the future. So, I don't know, you spend all your time in study, or all your time in work, all your time in making something that is more likely to bring a future development in some aspect of something you value than not. And of course, if you get it wrong, you find you've built a future like a career, but your future actually relied on, say, human relationships, and they've been impoverished by such a myopic view of the future, or shall I say narrow view of the future, that you got it wrong. It excluded other things in the future that were possibly much more important. And your life becomes a series of events that are less satisfactory than could otherwise have been. Well, that's a heap of words, but in some sense it lays out the scheme in which we're operating, in living as regards however we define the present unit of time and the future stream. Of course, if we define the present unit of time too great, too large, it becomes unwieldy, and we can be allocating priorities within the unit, so we'd start to break the unit down into something more meaningful and according to our experience and perception. So if we just go back to a more loose conversation where we say the present versus the future, the present is simply that unit of time which in a sense is serviceable as regards being defined as the now. In the limit, of course, the now is insignificantly instant and passing. Its duration is extremely short, approaching zero. Whereas the future's duration is potentially very great. Unless, of course, you are thinking of or convinced of the future as being ending at some point in time. And certainly many people have looked upon death in that sense, that, well, when you're dead, you're dead. I mean, I don't care what happens to the body or anything else. I mean, I'm just going to be dead then. Nothing follows death. It's annihilation. Things come to an end. Just as, in a sense, the building is no longer there if I demolish it. We can't talk about the future of the building once it's been demolished. We could build another building perhaps, but whether that has any relationship to this building is, well, that's interesting. The link might be that we've got a plan in mind that's rather majorly affected by our experience of this building. But it would require, of course, something of ours to be continuous across the two time periods, like a record or a memory of what the old building was like when we built the new. That's an interesting one, but possibly a by-road here. The focus I started with here was, what is addiction? It's something that the present preoccupation with is costly to welfare in the future, as defined by how we will value the future when we move into it, compared to how we are valuing the future now. We're discounting the future so that it's not so important to us in our priorities now, and we're giving priority to something that actually is damaging of the future. Well, this does really imply that we, if the future consequences of saving, for argument's sake, the future consequences of doing everything now to improve the future we would be doing that if the present were of no value now, except in as far as it improves the future. And I think that might be defendable or conceivably valid purpose, in that the now is so infinitely small and passing. If you really want to be fussy about the now, it's possibly as small as that unit of time which can be experienced now without memory lasting any time at all. Otherwise, if the now has some immediate impact on the next moment, and the next moment is defined as coming that quickly, then it becomes impossible to discount the next moment 100% because it's here so quickly before you've even got time to get rid of the previous memory. So I think what we're saying is that consciousness is a finite period of time for memory to exist. In other words, I mean, obviously if that finite period of time were zero, approaching zero, then we say, well, he's got no memory at all. Can't remember anything. I mean, you'd be lifting your hand and forgetting why you're lifting it. You know, you started with some sort of intention, and before the intention came, you lost the memory of the intention, so you don't lift your hand at all. To turn the light on, say, or whatever. And you've completely and utterly forgotten, I mean, that you wanted the light turned on. So you might, it's not even clear you can say you're experiencing something if memory is zero, because I'm not even giving time to the registry of the pain. Say, you know, I'm touching something that's too hot. You know, the pain comes to be registered, but it's such a short period of time in the present that I don't have time to think about it and worry about the pain or feel fear or even register that the pain is pain. The memory's gone. So, in some sense, memory is fundamental to life existing.
Right, so I think I'll take a break there, otherwise this recording will be too long. We'll call this one A and the next one B. Thank you, Dan.